Okay.
Okay.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching from. We've got an interesting question today, and that question is usually asked by most moms and dads, in fact, most parents. And that question is, how do we prepare our children for the real world without filling them with fear? Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. And today is another amazing session with Nelly and I. For those who don't know me, my name is Peggy Barre, and I'm a survivor empowerment coach and founder of Arise and Thrive Academy. Let me pass it to Nelly to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. I am Nelly Kwasingwe, a social worker, transformational life coach, and co-founder for Hand in Hand Community CIC. We are really pleased to be here today and to have this amazing topic. Over to you, Peggy.
Yes, Nelly, it's another evening, and we are going to be diving deep into a topic that it may sound so simple, but to be honest with you, most parents struggle with it. Even myself, I do struggle with this question. And like I've said, the question is how do we really kind of educate our children with the real stuff without scaring them? So today we're going to be covering a few items where we're going to be breaking down all the techniques that we've used. We're going to be sharing our experiences, Nelly and I, as parents. So we're going to be looking at how to prepare our children for challenges in age-appropriate ways. We're going to be looking at communicating safely without fear. We're going to be covering building confidence and resilience in children and also helping our children to feel secure while learning about the world. So, Nelly, have you got any statistics first before we
No,
dive
today
in?
no statistics.
All right then. Well, I don't know whether you want to dive in.
Um, Maybe you can just go ahead with
Yeah.
anything that you have to say. Let me just.
Yeah. Okay. So the reason why we came up with this topic is because, as we know, we live in a technological world today where with the social pressure or peer pressure is actually teaching our children, the social media is teaching our children, you know, environment is teaching our children what they need to hear. And sometimes our children may not be may not learn things in an appropriate way. They feel that maybe they've learned certain things in a certain way. But us parents, we may have our own way that we want to teach these children these things without scaring them. I'll just go for example. I know that again, we live in a world where there was a time where when my daughter got to, I don't know, my daughter got to maturity. I know I don't know how to say it, but at that time she was approaching 11. And Nelly, I was scared. I was really scared. How am I going to tell my daughter that there is a point in a girl's life or in a woman's life where they menstruate? And how am I going to break that down? How am I going to explain that to her in such a way that she will understand it without really scaring her? So this is just one of the many questions and the many difficulties that parents do face. And if we don't gather the courage and tell them in a better way, we may scare them, and the society or the media may tell them their own version. So sometimes as parents, it is for us to be able to gather that momentum, take that deep breath in, and then see how we can actually put our child down and then tell our children the reality in a more welcoming and safe manner. So this is what we're going to be talking today, and I'm sure Nelly and I will have a few things that we're going to be jumping in. I know I've got experiences for my male children and the female children. And yeah, Nelly, I don't know whether if you're ready, we could just dive into the first point where we're talking about how to prepare our children for challenges in age appropriate ways.
Yeah, thank you, Peggy. What you've said is really true. It can be really scary because now in this world of advanced technology, children know a lot.
Mm.
So sometimes we don't even know what our children know. And we struggle
Mm.
to help our children prepare for whatever is coming, because as parents, we have lots and lots of experiences, and we don't want to take our experiences and feed that on the child, because it will mostly be fear-based, though unfortunately that's really common. But then here today, we are having this conversation, so we start identifying where we are transferring our fears onto our children and the impact that
Mm-hmm.
can have on children.
Yeah.
So when we want to prepare children for the
Mm-hmm.
challenges ahead without scaring them, yes, we know our children will soon get into adulthood, no matter how old they are, but we are hopeful that they'll get into adulthood.
Yeah.
While they are still children, as parents, we don't need to take adult issues and just give to the children, because they will not understand. Though speaking from a social worker's point of view, this is very common because parents take parent issues or adult issues and discuss it with the child as if they are friends. And to some parents, because the child is there listening, the parent just says whatever they are saying without considering the impact it might have on the child. So we just need to be careful. It's not that we don't really tell our children what is out there, but it needs to be child appropriate. Use language that is appropriate for the child. And sometimes, instead of parents just starting conversations, if you make your child comfortable to come up to you and say, Mom, Dad, I am struggling with this, or ask questions, for instance, which is very common. Children come
Mm-hmm.
up and ask, oh, Mom, where does the baby come from? Things like that. So I know some parents will say they get babies from the shop, they get babies from the hospital and things like that. When children eventually get to the age where they can understand without the parent explaining to the child where children come from, that children will start doubting the parent that, oh, I asked a question and this was the answer. And they grew thinking that children are got from the shop. And when they realize that that's not how children are made, then they start being very selective on what they want to discuss with their parents, because they might be thinking, is that another lie? Though they won't voice it to parents that they are lying, but they'll
Yeah.
start drawing. So it's to know what is age appropriate. So for myself, when I think of being age appropriate, I
Mm-hmm.
monitor the child. What kind of questions are they asking? If a child asks a question, depending on the question, I feel that they are curious. Probably they have already heard about that information. So what I do is I explore that with them, ask them more, let them tell me, let them teach me what they know. So based on what they already know, I will now fit in the blanks. So for me, that's how I know that a child is ready to get an information and give it to them the way that they will understand age appropriate.
Yeah. That is so true, Nelly. And when you were talking, something stood out to me, and I was like, you know what? Sometimes it's even important to, first of all, even just kind of clarify what preparing actually means. Like sometimes, because sometimes us parents, we just feel like if we don't get the techniques, if we don't know the techniques and how to also manage our own emotion and know what preparation means, for a child, we might be dumping unnecessary information on these children, and in that way we're scaring them. So again, preparation is just like Nelly said, it's more about making sure you gauge the ages of the children, give them the tools that they need depending on their ages, without without scaring them, and also building awareness, not anxiety. And like Nelly said, every child at their own age will learn certain things depending on their levels. So it's about building that awareness, based on their ages, and then also teaching them that confidence, not fear. Because sometimes as parents, especially because the way we've been brought up, we might be saying something and sounding as if, what, I want to teach you how to be confident, but no, we may instead be instilling fear, not confidence. We may even be teaching fear and not confidence. And so another way that Nelly said, as Nelly said, we need to learn how to give them age appropriate information. Again, it comes down to the point where it falls under some mistakes that parents make. Like, for example, if we don't know the tools, know how to speak to our children, we may give them too much information too early. Just like Nelly said, from speaking from the social worker point of view, and also speaking maybe from the domestic abuse point of view, where we go through our own challenges. And then maybe we don't even know how to tell that information to our kids in a way where it will not create hatred, in a way it will not create fear and even resentment, especially towards the other parents. So this is where we as parents need to be very, very, this is where we need to learn the skills of information management, where we really need to manage the information that we tell them and the one that we retain. And we retain that information in good faith. So we need to avoid telling them too much information too early. We need to avoid using adult language. And especially, I'm talking from the fact that we Afro-Caribbeans, we have our certain language, adult language, that when we use it, honestly, you could feel. Like I always say, my grandma never used to beat me, Nelly. When I was growing up, she never laid her hands on me. But when she opened her mouth to talk to me, sometimes when, like, if I do something wrong and she wants to scold me, the words were like, up to today, I can still visualize some of those words. I can still remember some of those words. They can be, yeah, they were quite painful, even though she would do that and then come back and pamper me and all of that. So again, we as parents, we need to also avoid like graphic details. If we're telling our children explaining certain things, we shouldn't use like too much graphic details, because those are the things that will stick in their memory. They may forget the words that we've said, but the graphic image that we were painting, or what they were imagining in their head when we're explaining that thing, that image is what is going to stay. And we shouldn't be speaking from our own anxiety. Just like Nelly says, sometimes we speak from our own fear, and we're projecting our fear onto these children. So especially when they are not mature enough to really comprehend and understand what we're trying to say. So that is why we need to make sure that we avoid the way we speak to them, we control our emotions, we avoid even our voice tone and all of that, because all of those things do matter. And yeah. So I don't know whether, Nelly, you want to say something on that point before we move to the next one.
Yeah, when you were talking there, I mean, so many things came to mind. Down to language, the language that some adults, some parents use is really, really heartbreaking. And even some people who are in positions of authority, because think of it this way: when we were children, we look up to anyone who was taller or bigger than us as the elder. They knew everything. We consider that they knew everything. And let me take, for instance, in school, a child goes to school and the teacher says, "You are stupid, you are dumb," things like that. That child carries that for such a long time. And
Mhm.
sometimes even parents, when they are angry, they throw words here and there. Some of the words are very, very hurtful. Some of them are curses. And this is to a child that you really love,
Mhm.
because we lack emotional literacy. We do
Mhm.
not realize the impact that is having on a child. I am saying this from a point of transformational life coach because we hear of people who lack confidence. Confidence is just an example. Self-doubt. Where is that coming from? Is a belief, and it is from things like this when parents or when adults say things to children or use certain words. Children believe in what they are told because they are learning. And when they hear that, for instance, they are stupid, they believe it that they are stupid and they'll look for everything possible to justify that they are stupid. That becomes the self-fulfilling prophecy. And if a
Exactly.
parent continuously say curses on the child and then comes back and pampers the child is confused. And the child will develop that attitude that they can say whatever they want to say and come back and apologize and things like that. And looking at what's going on now, probably is because it's the transformational life coaching that I'm doing. People are struggling. And more specifically, Afro-Caribbeans, we are struggling because some people that I work with, they come to me and they say, I don't know why, but I really struggle when I'm at work or with people. I don't want to speak up. And when I start asking them guided questions to dig down why they are scared of speaking
Mm.
up, it always goes down to something that someone has told them. And that is mostly when they were very young and they developed that belief that they are the way that person described it. But that
Mm.
has been going on in their heads for such a long time. But externally, no one would understand. And if
Yeah.
it's not down to the coaching or probably therapy, and if not coaching or therapy, they might not even associate what had happened or what they were called, what they are experiencing and the impact it's having on them. So there we need to be careful. And
Mhm.
one other thing that I just want is just an example that I want to throw out there. So we know as girls, as females, we have this cycle, this menstrual cycle that we experience every month.
Mm.
It is natural. I cannot count the number of mothers that have spoken to them and they say that they have never had that conversation with their child. They did not prepare their child because when they were younger, their mothers never told them that. But then when they found out that they were on their period, they were hiding it because they thought that they had a cut or something. So
Mm.
imagine this. It's natural. So probably for me, I see it differently because my mom had that conversation with me before I even started seeing my period. So to me, I thought it was okay. And that was the same
Mhm.
thing I did with my children. But then doing this work that I'm doing, that was when I realized that not every girl knows about period before they start experiencing period, which is why I
Mhm.
was talking to mothers and asking them. And I was really shocked. And because that's their experience. So it's things like this that we need to, first of all, learn to make ourselves comfortable with who we
Mhm.
are. Because even the changes that goes on in our bodies, we don't talk about them. And then our children don't understand when they see their body start changing. They don't understand. Some they hide because they're like, oh, I'm having boobs, my boobs are growing. But it's just natural. If the parent had had that conversation with the child in preparation, then the child will know. Though at the moment, the child might be dismissive of it because they've not started seeing the symptoms. But then when they start seeing the symptoms, they will remember that, oh, mom had this conversation with me. Auntie had this
Mhm.
conversation with me. They will remember and they will deal with it differently from when they
Mhm.
did not even have an idea.
Yeah, no, that is so true. That is so true. I remember the time that I cried the whole day. I thought something had happened. So these are some of the things that and luckily, Nelly, there's some well, we live in a technological world today where some of these kids, they will know these things, but the fact is that they will get it somewhere else. And it is always good to get it from home if they can, from your own, because the reassurance that you're going to give them is different from where they're just going to pick it somewhere on social media, or maybe someone is going to tell them and that all of that thing. Because again, we reassure them in such a way that when it happens, don't be scared. It's just natural. It's just okay. Another thing that we just want to talk about again is we need to focus on what they can do. Like if we're telling our children certain things, we need to focus on, for example, it's more like we need to shift from language, and we've talked a little bit about language. We can, we instead of, focusing on what could go wrong, we should instead focus on what can help them to stay safe or keep them safe. Because again, when we want to explain certain things to our kids, we we attempt it. I've done that a few times, and honestly, I'm learning to make sure that I don't first of all project what could go wrong, right? Like we need to first of all point out how to keep safe. And why do we keep safe? We keep safe because X or YZ, right? Rather than just jump into the graphic bit of the thing. I don't know if that makes sense. So, for example, I don't know how to use it, but for example, rather than when my son started learning how to catch the bus to go school, I know he catches two buses to go to school. I remember the first day when I was telling him that, you know what, you need to make sure that you call me, keep me posted. If you are on the bus, text me that mom, I'm on the bus. When you get to school, a quick text message say, mom, I arrived safely. I remember the first that conversation that I had with him. Rather than me telling him that, you know what, for you to keep safe, do A, B, C, D. I immediately went on to the fact that, you know, what if somebody what if somebody stab you on the bus, or what if you have we paint, sometimes we paint a picture that that child first of all may even be discouraged to actually take that initiative. I might have discouraged him. In fact, the first day when I told him, he was like, mom, you're scaring me now. I said, no, it's not as if the bus is going to have an accident, or maybe somebody's going to stop you on the bus, or no, not like that. The reason why I'm saying that keep your phone safe to you is just that in case anything happens, at least give me a quick text message. But you see, initially, I had started the conversation from a standpoint of fear before I was coming back now to safety. So again, that is why it's always important that we should mind the way we start the conversation. We should mind what we say. Another example I could give is that rather than starting saying strangers are dangerous, that is projecting fear in that child. And come on, when they leave here and go to school, they go on the bus with strangers. They will meet strangers on their way, up to the point where they go to school and come back, they will meet strangers. So if we just say strangers are dangerous, that already makes them to start being alert. If they stand by the bus stop and they're standing by a stranger, in their head of thinking, oh my, is this stranger going to attack me? Is what. But if we say stay close to people you trust and tell them if you feel unsure, at least that makes them know that, you know what, yes, even though outside world there are some nasty people out there, but there's some good people as well. And your network of friends, you can trust your network of friends. Stay close to those that you trust. And if you feel unsafe, always make sure you mention it. So in that way, we're preparing them that yes, if I go out there, I need to make sure I look after myself. I don't know whether that speaking from that point of confidence or assurance than from the point of fear. I don't know if that makes sense, Nelly.
Yeah, it makes sense. And before we build that confidence to reassure our children, we need to first of all reassure ourselves, become aware of our own triggers,
Mhm.
because you can't be panicking and tell a child that everything will be fine. The
Yeah.
children read emotions, they
Yeah.
read reactions, and they will go by what they feel. Say, if you are telling them that everything will be fine, but then you are panicking, the
Mhm.
child will go with the panicking and not what
Yeah.
you are saying. So
Yeah.
we need to take a step back and start examining our responses, our reactions, what triggers us. Because if, say, you talked about the boss, the
Mhm.
way you have like daily conversations with your children, they pick up a lot.
Yeah.
If, say, for the boss, you are talking only of negative things about that can happen on the boss, the child is picking up that negativity. But then,
Mhm.
if you talk about these are certain things that have happened on the bus, but there are also good things that have happened on the bus. And again, the bus takes you from one destination to school and back home, which is great. So don't just focus only on the negative things of something that can happen.
Mhm.
Is it something that happens daily? No. It isn't.
Mhm.
But because the way negativity spreads easily, people will focus on what that negative thing is. Because
Yeah.
if a negative thing happens like once in a year, people will focus on that one negative experience for years to come. And they will
Yeah.
leave out the 99.9% of good things. But then have a balance. Look at the negative things to be cautious, but then live your life. Focus on the positive things so you live life in an enjoyable way. I think this negativity contributes to a lot of why we struggle. We don't have we want to be happy, but we are not happy because we are focusing on but what if, but what if, but then you can switch it. But what if it happens in a nice way?
Yeah.
So it's
Exactly.
for us to start with ourselves.
Yeah. That's so true. And another thing that when we're talking, I talk of because again we're raising children that these children will someday go into their own relationships. And from parent standpoint, some parents have come through a difficult relationship. And it may have happened with that child's other parent, whether the dad or the mom. And the way we explain, it's not as if we need to let our children understand that, yes, there is something out there which is called domestic abuse. And it is not good. But we don't have to narrate it to our kids in such a way where we tell them that no relationship is not safe. Because if we narrate it from the standpoint projecting our own fear and projecting our experiences in a very negative way, that means we are telling our children that relationship is not good or that it's not good to, get intimate partners. It's not good to get married. It's not good to. So these are some of the things that, like Nelly said, we need to in fact, we need to understand that even though that relationship did not go right, there was some good aspect in it. Yes, we need to make sure we let them understand that these are the symptoms or these are some of the red flags that you need to check. You need to be sure of when you get into a relationship. These are the red flags. And these red flags, you need to make sure that you spot them for your own safety. But apart from that, you need to bring out the older, beautiful side of a relationship. So I know because I've had conversation with parents where they say, like, you know what, because of what I went through, I will not even encourage my child to go through that journey. But you're different and your child is different. Why not let them live their own life? Why not even let them sometimes even experience it and learn from their own journey? All you have to do as a parent is like, what are the lessons? And Nelly, one thing I've noticed is that when you hear that type of statement from some of these parents, these are the parents that dwell more on the victim mindset. The parents that have not learned and say, you know what is it that went wrong in that relationship? What is it that I learned from that relationship? And how can I take that lesson and move forward with that lesson, right? So that I can maybe one create, get, create better relationship with people, or I can be able to, if it was a weakness that I did not, if I had a weakness in that relationship, how can I turn that weakness into a strength so that I can be able to have more healthier relationship? I can be able to speak out my needs. I can be able to be assertive, so these are some of the things that we need to be teaching our children. Like I'll say, for example, one thing I always tell my daughter is that one of the highest thing I've learned from my relationship that I was too quiet. And I was too quiet is because I let my fear, in fact, it felt as if I gave away my voice. And so I've learned that for you to be a confident woman and for you to be able to assert yourself, you need to own your voice. And you owning your voice is owning your power. So that if something is not right, if somebody is doing something that you don't feel okay, you can open your mouth and say, I don't like it. I don't feel okay with this thing. So it's about teaching that child that as you navigate through this adulthood, one skill that you need to learn is how to be assertive. You need to be confident to speak up. You need to be able to express yourself in a healthy way. So that is a skill that you're teaching that child. And eventually, when they learn that skill, again, it's going to be valuable in their relationship. Yeah. I just thought I should add that one.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And you talked about relationship, and looking at the world today, there are so many people who struggle in relationships. And there's this common saying I've heard that there's no good relationship, there are no good men, there are no good women. This again comes from, like Peggy said, from people who say this are people who haven't healed from their
Mm,
relationships, and they are
yeah.
passing that on to their children. They become very protective. And I've heard some mothers, some parents telling their children that I I had a very bad relationship with someone from this village or this country or this continent. You should never, ever, ever get into a relationship with that person. Already, that child is scared. But then that's how a parent projects their insecurities onto the child.
Mhm.
And like that,
Yeah.
children can, because they want to respect their parents, not get into a relationship, and probably destinies have been missed. So,
Mhm.
parents, we need to be mindful. First of all, if that relationship failed, ask yourself, what was your contribution in that relationship? For instance,
Mm,
Peggy, you've said you were very quiet. Same here. I was very quiet because growing up, my parents did not tell me this, but in my community, I knew that you were there as a woman just to say yes or just to do what you've been asked to do. But now
mhm,
I am realizing that no, I have, because as I've been reflecting through my adulthood, I realized that because I stopped myself from expressing who I am, what I want, I then forgot completely the woman I was. Because
mm,
for many years, if you ask me what I like, I didn't even know. Because I'll
mm,
talk about what the children want, da, 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 but never of myself. And that's how gradually, because it's not just overnight, it's gradually that you start giving away your power, and then eventually you give it all. So when we are talking to our children, we need to be mindful because that is the part that we played. But then
mhm,
it's not the same path, the same way that our children will will deal with things. And it's so heartbreaking now because you see very young children and they are looking for true love. What do they know? I don't know. But they're really looking for true love at when they're in high school and things like that. But then as a parent is to guide that child because it is the experience that they need to go through. It's not to stop a child that you don't have to get into a relationship because of whatever reason. It is the experience because
Mm-hmm.
the experience makes life worth living. But if
Yeah.
parents, we want to overprotect our children and do everything for them, unfortunately, we are producing children who will be dependent on us. And you see a lot of men now, they are not able to make a decision unless they
Mm-hmm.
contact their parents or their siblings to come up with a decision. It's because of small things like that, because children were not prepared for
Mm-hmm.
adulthood. And it starts
Yeah.
with little conversations. Make the child to feel free to come to the mom or the dad to talk about whatever they are thinking of. If the mom and dad are not able to have those conversations, it's okay to make the child know that they can speak to auntie or uncle or a church member that they trust. And
Mm-hmm.
if that child comes back wanting to say something, it is okay for parents to spare that time and listen to the child, because that child might be coming to cry out for something. But if we don't spend that time to listen to the child, like Peggy said at the start, the child will go somewhere, and there are always people out there who will teach our children what they are asking for.
Yeah. It's so true, Nelly. And one thing again that we need to also be mindful of is building emotional safety. Like you always say, Nelly, emotions is all about we're emotional beings. And as we're growing, as our kids are growing, as parents, and that emotional safety, like you had mentioned, it needs to start from us parents. First of all, you need to ask yourself, have I gotten to a point where I can really control my emotion? How well is my emotional safety? And it's about you. Sometimes we just say things to to our children, and then we just leave them like that. We don't even find the time to ask them, hang on, that conversation that I had with you, how did that make you feel? You know, what did you think of it? How did that make you feel? Because sometimes we may have a conversation and then we just say, you know what, the conversation has already taken place and that's it. We just leave that child and that child will be struggling, with that aftermath of how they're trying to process everything. So again, that reassurance, making them to know that we feel for them, and making them know that we the intention we intended, it was for good, and just in case if they are feeling contrary to what we thought they're going to feel, then again, that's where we can come in with reassurance, just making sure we clarify things with them, reassure them about what we've discussed about, or whatever thing you've discussed with your child. So that's one thing. And again, like we say, if we just dismiss their emotion again, that actually will add to that fear. So no matter how they feel, they may even come up and say, mom, you know what, mom, that thing that you said, I don't even agree with it. I don't agree with that thing that you said. Yeah. And it's okay. It's good for them to actually say, you know what, and that is where you have a conversation. You don't agree. Why don't you agree with it? Or what is your view? That's where conversation can come in. And again, like I said, sometimes our children can even teach us, because our conversation may be coming from our own point of our beliefs, what we believe about that thing. But because that child is actually exposed to maybe the right information, or they have learned, these days they teach them many things in school. They may actually have facts about that thing that you're telling them, but then they was like, you know what, I can challenge you. That thing that you said, no, mom, it's not this way. It is this way because of A, B, C, D. And in that way, we can also learn as well. So, and then another thing that I just wanted to also add is um, we need to let our children know that whatever thing they are not sure about, we are there for them. We are ready to talk. And that is what Nelly, I think we had talked about, having that conducive environment where if our child is not sure of anything, the first point of contact is us. Or if they cannot come directly to us, maybe they've got an auntie, they've got an uncle that they can approach, to have that conversation. In that way, they know that they are safe. They've got a safety network that they've got somebody that they can speak to. So I don't know whether I wanted to say something, but I think Nelly, that actually has already taken us to our second and third point, which is about communicating with safety and then building confidence and resilience in our children.
Yeah. So just to talk about resilience, this is a word that is just been flying here and there. And we think that you need to do some big learning to get resilience. No, it's
Mhm,
just by little practice, like Peggy has said, and we have said it, I think, all our sessions, we talk about communication. Because
mhm,
if you go back, communication is just one aspect. Because when you communicate effectively, it's not just talking. Because,
mhm,
okay, communicating, a lot of African parents, they will tell you, do this, full stop. To them, that's their full communication. But then to the child, they go on with so many questions about that thing that they've been told to do, and they don't understand. But then,
mhm,
because if they want to ask more about that, they get in trouble that they are disrespecting, or some parents will say, who are you to ask me a question, and things like that. So already that child doesn't even understand what they are meant to do, and they will do it anyway, their own way.
mm,
And sometimes they can get into trouble. But then if you make it a make your home to be conducive where a child can comfortably come to you and ask questions where they don't understand and even challenge you, that is good, because you are building up, or you are bringing up, a confident and resilient child, and also independent child. Because
mhm,
you don't need to wait till they are adults to start developing those skills. No, it starts from when they are very young. What decisions can they make for themselves? It can be as simple as, these are two dresses. Which one do you want to wear? The red
mhm,
one or the blue one? That's already giving them choices, and they know that they can pick one. So it's as simple as that. But create that
mhm,
time, because mostly we say we are too busy. But imagine, how busy are we for our children? And then do we prefer other people to create time to care for our children? So we need to think twice and make it make your children feel free to come talk to you. And again, if your children don't want to talk to you about something in particular, and they have someone to talk to, that's fine. It doesn't mean that they'll run to you all the time, run to their parents, because it might leave a bit of dependency. But if you
yeah,
want to promote independence, they might even want to sort out their issues within their siblings,
yeah,
and then you might not even know about it. So it's not for the parent to be there all the time. I need to know what you're talking about. I need to know what you are doing. Safety comes first. If the children are safe, and
yeah,
if the environment is safe, and whatever else they are doing, let them do it, because they are exploring their environment.
yeah. That is so true. And it's whether we like it or not, the world is a chaotic place. And we can't, in as much as parents, we would love to like protect our kids in the best possible way. But when they leave their house, and go to school and back for the grown-up ones. We're not with them. We don't know who they talk to. We don't know who they interact. We don't know who they met on the road and all of that. We don't even know how that day is going to be. So just like Nelly said, it's about rather than us building fear within us and also maybe projecting that fear onto the kids, we need to teach them that resilience. We need to teach them to be confident. We need to teach them safe to be safe. The most important, tell them to be safe. How can you be safe? How can you make certain decisions even if I'm not there? Just like Nelly said, because our kids sometimes, and it's okay for them to make decisions even though those decisions can be wrong. They sometimes allow them to make the decision and fail, but then learn. Right? There are certain things that sometimes they will come and say, "Mom, can I do this?" I was like, "What do you think? Do as go by what you feel." But then they'll go by what they feel or what they think is right. It may not be right. And then if it happens and they come back, I was like, "Oh," I said, "No, that is all called learning curve. You need to learn." If just like a child, if a child starts to walk, they will walk and fall. They will stand and fall and all of that. But then gradually, that's how they gain momentum, they gain resistance. They know, okay, I need to put my feet this way to be able to start. So that is just about life. I know sometimes parents, we can be very, very overprotective. I've been there where you know, I'll just share this experience when I had with Nelly. I was discussing with Nelly. My son, in fact, when he turned 15, he wanted to go to Manchester to go and celebrate his birthday with his friend. And they were actually making their plans, how they're going to catch the train together, they're going to travel together to Manchester, spend the day there, and then come back. Me, with my protective mindset of like, no, I'm not letting you go on that train. I'm not letting you go with your friends. And my son said, okay, how am I going to get there then? As I'm going to drive you and drop you there and then hang around and pick you and bring you back. And then he said, okay. He said, that's all right. But then my daughter was the one that actually, when I shared it with my daughter is the one that actually told me that, Mom, don't you have something to do? Why are you bothering yourself? He said, just book his ticket. In fact, I will book his ticket. Let him go with his friends, and then go have their fun and then come back. So why are you worried? Do you know that's when I was like, hang on, but that's true. So I had to book the ticket. And the good thing is that my son said to me, Mom, I know you're worried, but don't worry. I'll keep you posted. I'll message you throughout whatever thing we're doing. And that's what he did. He messaged me throughout the trip until when he came back, he called me and then I went and picked him up from the train station. And that is it. So sometimes again it's about we projecting, oh my God, what if they go and stab you now on the train? And why are you gonna stop that? So again, like I was just saying, Nelly, it's about sometimes parents, we can be so protective. Let them, let them, let them, let them. Mel Robbins talked about there's a book that she wrote Let Them Theory. Just let them, let them be, let them do what they can do while you're guiding them as a parent in a safe way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, when our children are leaving the house, or especially when you are just starting to let them be independent, it's really
Mm-hmm.
scary because, yes, when they are at home, you know that they are safe. But when they go out there, anything can happen. But then,
Mm-hmm.
what is the plan?
Yeah.
What is the plan? Like your son ringing you, they know that you were worried and
Mm-hmm.
they kept it. That is him taking responsibility. And there
Yeah.
are small things like that. Because if, say, you had not been having that good communication with your son, and you just say, when you go, ring me, the child might go and decide that, you know what,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not something that they are feeling it, because
Yeah.
they might take it like it's a duty that they
Yeah.
need to keep you informed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it can be very disturbing, but it's to give the child a chance because look at it when you were a child. What things did you used to do? Where did you used to go to?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's how that those are
Yeah,
the memories that you have
yes.
created for yourself because you sit and you think that, oh, it was very dangerous then, but who cared at the time? You didn't because
Exactly.
you just went, you had fun, and the feeling around what you had, that's what you put in memory. And from time to time, you want to remember such a
Mhm.
situation.
It's true. It's true. And we are who we are today because thanks to that, thanks to that freedom that we had. We
Mm-hmm.
learned the tough way. We overcame our fears. There were times that, you'll be threatened that, if you go there, but we will go in the dark. We'll go in the dark. We'll walk bushes, go in the dark, but then come back. So that in a way was teaching us. So again, what we say is that children don't need to know everything about the world, because in fact, some of them are even smarter than us parents. There are certain things that our kids know that is happening out there that we don't even know. But one important thing is that they need to know that they are safe, they are loved, and they are supported. That is the important thing. So that whenever anything comes up, right, whether any doubt that they have, any question that they want to ask, they know that, what, they've got somebody safe that they can ask that question. They can go to a parent, they can go to an auntie or whichever to ask that question. So we first of all need to build a conducive environment. That is a key takeaway for me, Nelly. It's about building that safety network, that conducive environment where your child will always feel free to come to you to ask any question that they have in their mind without being scared that, what, you're going to interpret it in another way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that takes us nicely to the last point about helping children feel secure. What we have been talking is how we make children feel secure, both emotionally and physically.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times we ignore the emotional part because we don't see, but creating that, I don't know how many times we've talked about a conducive environment just this one episode. It's because it's really, really important because there are
Yeah.
small things. Make it for your child to feel comfortable to come talk to you. Even if they
Mm-hmm.
say something that you don't like, it is their way of expressing themselves instead of you stopping the child or saying
Mm-hmm.
that you can talk about this but not talk about that. It's not being helpful. It's not
Mm-hmm.
being helpful. Let the child, it doesn't mean that the child can say anything under the sun because you've given them the opportunity. Though, unfortunately, a lot of, I think the first time that I saw this kind of behavior was my first few years in the UK, where a
Mm.
child was just speaking to their parent, and I was shocked, and I was like, and it was in a public place. I was just too shocked, and I just stood, and the child was cursing the mom, and the mom just stood quiet, and I could not believe it until this day. That's something that I'm still shocked by it. That the question that I ask is, how did you let it get to that level? And again, it's because if you don't wake up to heal from whatever took you that low, then you are giving away your power. So then, who is meant to take care of the child? Who is meant to
Mm.
provide that safety and security space for the child? So
Mm.
there's
Yeah.
certain things like keep a routine, keep
Yeah.
boundaries, just small things. That's how the child will feel that they are safe, they are secure. I'll share something. It's just so silly, but I'll share it. Okay. So my son, um, in the morning, he likes, previously he did not used to have breakfast. But this
Mm-hmm.
time around, he has decided that he wants breakfast. So I suggested once that I would make him pancake in the morning. And he was like, oh, yes, mom, pancake. So I made him pancake. And the next day, he was like, oh, mom, any more pancakes? And I was like, oh, do you still want pancake? And he said, yes. Guess what? For like 2 months now, Monday to Friday, I'm making pancakes every morning, every morning. And then one of my daughters, there was a day I made just small that my son ate and then I ate. And she came and she was like, oh, mom, where's the pancake? And I was like, oh, I didn't know you like the pancake. So imagine for 2 months, I'm making pancakes Monday to Friday. It's just small things like that. We will take it for granted. It's not that they eat
Yeah.
much. When I make it,
Mhm.
they have two each.
Yeah.
2 months, it's not much, but is that they feel that they can ask for it. And
Yeah.
sometimes they want to push the boundary to say, I make it on Saturday, Sundays. And I say, no, I will not make pancakes over the weekend, only weekdays and only school time. So then, like one of my daughters, when she leaves the house, when I haven't made the pancakes, and she comes back in the evening, the first thing she looks at is, did I leave her pancakes? So it's just small things like that, that for them,
Yeah.
they feel that, oh, they can feel, in a way, that is their
Yeah.
security. They feel secure that, you know,
Exactly. Yeah.
sometimes we
Yeah.
take them for granted, but are just
Yeah.
small things because it's what is important to that child.
Exactly. Exactly. And sometimes parents, we underestimate how secure our home can. It's not in the big, our kids sometimes they're not looking in for massive things. They're just looking for this little thing, something that when they walk home, they're like, oh, I am home. When they come to the kitchen, they're like, oh, I feel so free. I know what to get. I know what I can do. Without any hesitation. That is where they call home. And home for them is safety. So as parents, again, I know I speak a lot with single parents where some of them are struggling and they like the other day I did a video. I did that video purposely of saying that parents we just need to learn to stay in our own lane, because sometimes you may be looking at the other person and feeling like, you know what, life for them is rosy, they've got everything that they need, why haven't I got? But no, maybe what they cannot give their child, you are giving your child. You are giving your child love, you're giving your child safety, you're giving your child the support that they need from you, right? So sometimes again, it's a bit to come back to where you are, look at your environment, ask yourself, what is it, no matter how small is it, that I am giving my kids and that they are happy? If your kids are happy by what they're having, if they're happy being home, if they're happy being by your side, then that's it. That is enough. And that is good enough. So yeah, and like we said, Nelly, it's about creating that supportive network and making sure that our kids, first of all, are comfortable to come and ask us any question without being scared. Yeah.
And then just one thing, when we make our children secure, we also tell them that, or we also make them understand that if something is not right with us, if they feel uncomfortable with something that we have said or done, they can
Mm-hmm.
approach us and talk about
Yeah.
that. But it's
Yeah.
not just the doing or it's not just the saying. They will understand because when children are coming, especially when they know that it is not the right thing or when they are doubting, they are not too sure whether they will be rejected or accepted. So when we make
Mm-hmm.
it, I know, Peggy, you've said this before, that for children to know that it's okay to come and talk about whatever they are thinking about. So it's to
Mm-hmm.
create that environment, that's a form of security because when the child struggles with something, they know straight
Mm-hmm.
away that when they get home, they are going to talk to mom, dad, big sis, big brother, or auntie, uncle, whoever is there that they can talk to. So they will feel that they are safe because looking at it, like our children go to school, bullying in school, we
Yeah.
don't know what children are going through when they are in school. Imagine a child is being bullied in school, and then if they come home and they are being bullied at home, where does the child go to? We are indirectly pushing that child to go to the streets. But if
Mm-hmm.
the child knows that home is a safe and conducive place, when they get bullied, they will come home and they'll talk about it and they'll get that reassurance. The next day, they'll get up and go again to school with much courage. And probably
Mm-hmm.
they will want to stand up for themselves. And eventually, the bullying might stop. But if they are bullied at school and bullied at home, the child becomes more vulnerable to more bullying, even in the community.
That is so true. That is really, really true. And we live in a world where parents, please, no matter how difficult it is, we need to make sure that our kids are safe at home. There is nothing in life that we can give them that is more than safety and the love that they need. Even when they grow and they're gone, one thing they will never forget they'll never forget how safe they were when they lived with us and how loved. So we need to make sure that in everything that we're doing, safety, support, love for our kids is most important. So yeah, I think we have come to over 9 minutes, gone past by 9 minutes. But yeah, Nelly, is there any
I
final
think
thoughts you
no,
want to
but
say?
I think it's because we started late
Yeah.
because of the technical issues that I had to set up.
Yeah. So yeah, is there any final thoughts, Nelly? And then we can round up.
Um, so when preparing our children, let's wait for them to get the signal because
Mhm.
when they are ready, they will start. So we need to, as parents, we need to understand our children. It's not that you just wake up in the morning and go to work and come back when the children are asleep and the next day and the next day because there's the misunderstanding that I provide everything for my children and majority of parents ignore the emotional side of it. And that's where a
Mm.
lot of troubles come in because you
Mm.
might buy heaven and earth for your child, but that child might not value any of those because of how they feel. So
Mhm.
let's invest time to spend with our children because
Mhm.
if we are scared that the world is a big bad place, that is what we are projecting on our children. But yes, we know bad things happen there, but then we can be happy. We can make the most out of the 1 hour that we have.
Mhm.
And that is what our children will learn. So let's differentiate our insecurities from those that are going on generally. And then
That's so
we
true.
aim for the best. Let's live in the present and not bring in the worries from the past or the fears for the future that we don't know. Yes, we need to consider those things, but how effective is any of those going to be when we don't make the right decisions now? So, which is why now is the only time we've got. Make the maximum of it and for our children
Yep,
as well.
that's so true. Yeah. So, well, you've heard it. I hope you've learned something today. We've covered all the topics that we've talked. I think the key takeaway for me is that safe environment, that safety, create that safety, because once we create that safety, even if there's a topic that we haven't even talked about it, our kids can feel okay to come to us and ask us about that topic. So yeah, whatever thing we're doing, let's just make sure that we keep, and it should not scare us as parents. Let's keep talking. Let's keep talking. If there's anything that we feel that we want to talk, but let us be mindful how we say it, our tone, manage our emotions, use the right words, be age up, respect their ages, and again, all of these things do matter. So thank you so much for watching us today. Thank you for joining us. If you can see me, for some reason I'm cold today. I feel like I've covered everywhere. There's heating on. That sort of kind of cold that you're feeling in your body. Like what? I don't know. I don't know, but I need to put my kettle on now. So thank you so much for joining us and have a great weekend and hope we will see you again in 2 weeks' time. As we always say, if you want to be part of us, please text us, send us a message. We would like you to be part of this panel so that we can talk. And if you have any topic that you feel like, you know what, Peggy or Nelly, can you talk about this topic? Then yes, bring it on. Me and Nelly, like always say, we come here, we just raw. Today we just speak from the mind. We just use our own experiences as parents. That's it. So yeah. Thank you so much. And Nelly, I don't know what you want to say. Last word for the audience.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's always a pleasure. I don't need to repeat what Peggy has said. Have a nice weekend and see you in 2 weeks.
See